Happy Thursday, everybody. I am so excited to be talking to you. So, leading up to the Women in Business Summit, which is in a couple of weeks, we've been featuring some of our amazing speakers who are going to be speaking on the topic of leadership development, money management, career advancement, entrepreneurship, and personal development. So it is absolutely my pleasure to have this conversation this morning with Simone Morris, who's CEO of Simone Morris Enterprises. I'll introduce myself if you haven't met me before. I am Keisha Zulo, the founder of the Women in Business Summit. And Simone, I am so thrilled to be talking to you this morning. We had a
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you for having me. It's my pleasure as well to be here.
So you're a speaker, an author, a coach, and you're also an expert in the diversity and inclusion space. You are a certified minority-owned business, woman-owned business, and you're an award recipient, which I'm really excited to share with everybody. You were recognized as a 2019 Women Business Enterprise Who Rock Award for your Minority Business Entrepreneur Magazine for leadership and community outreach. That's exciting. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Can't believe it's a year already.
I know, 2019 is a distant memory.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So I want to talk first about, the topic of the day, COVID, and how you've had to shift your business and how has it affected you personally.
Absolutely. It affected me personally because I was in Las Vegas when this first started around early March at a conference, and a little bit leery about traveling to the airport, and then found out when we got back from Las Vegas that someone at the conference had the virus. So I was immediately self-quarantined for 14 days. And after that, everything hit the fan, everything changed. So for me, I've had to do a lot of pivoting. It's allowed me to slow down quite a bit because I was traveling quite a bit last year on the road, teaching conscious inclusion, speaking at conferences, etc. So it grounded me to be in the home. It also changed the dynamic of the home because I now have a 5-year-old at home 24/7. So in terms of entertaining her and being her play partner, it's very different because I realized that I don't know how to play. I know how to work hard, and I have forgotten how to play as a child. And so I'll find myself thinking, okay, what do I need to do next? And I should be playing. And so it has been some growth for me in the play space. And I also had to pivot to be innovative in creating products that I bring to the marketplace in this time. So it has been just a journey.
Because
in 2020.
because you're on the, like you said, you're on the road a lot, speaking at different engagement. I know a lot of things are being done virtually. So you're right, there's a lot. And we were talking before we got on camera about thinking about the fall and school and what that means and continuing on this journey of social distancing and all of that and this constant shift. So what are some of the things that you found has been helpful as you shifted your business and decided to go in a different direction for your business?
I actually found social media to be comforting during this time. I think as entrepreneurs, you can end up working by yourself in a silo because you're not around people, especially during this COVID time. And so I found that I belong to certain groups on Facebook, and they're women centric around business that's given me ideas and support on this journey. So that's one thing. The other thing is I have been leaning into professional development. I tell my coaching clients all the time to make time to learn. And I am a lifelong learner, but because of my schedule and everything going on, I'm finding that I'm doing more training now because there is so much information. It's almost like a fire hose of webinars and podcasts and opportunities to learn. I mean, the Goldman Sachs program, which traditionally you have to apply to this 10,000 business program for business education, you can get into it for free on Coursera. And so it's a commitment of time, but it's now available. And so I'm finding all these opportunities. I'm up late at night, just consuming so that I can pivot accordingly. So there's lots to do, but professional development is a big one.
So you, like I shared at the top of the conversation, you play in the diversity and inclusion space. What have you seen shifted in that arena since COVID? There's been a lot of talk about, women, we were doing great, and all of a sudden now our numbers aren't looking so great in the workspace and, promotion. So what have you been paying attention to, and what have you seen shifted since COVID?
I've been paying attention to myself, because I actually had to give myself grace and space to deal with what was happening. It was bad enough that we had to deal with COVID, but I think George Floyd was just the tipping point. I know certainly for me, it tipped me over.
Yeah.
And I think it's because in succession, it was one after the other, and it wasn't like it was a new thing, but it was such a visceral reaction for me with knowing that someone was callously murdered, that I could not just go on with life as I know it. Like it stunted me. And I was so deeply saddened and thinking about the next generation and what that would mean for them, and what can I do? What is in my sphere of influence? And so when I was able to resurrect from that feeling of despair and just disappointment about what is going on in the leadership in this country, I was able to say, okay, let me pull together some experts to talk about how do we fight racism and what are strategies that people can leverage for this. So I have run 3 expert panel discussions so far, which have been hugely attended, and hearing the content from the other experts and hearing the audience consume it and have them be highly engaged in asking questions has given me hope. So I have another panel that's going to be on Monday. And I have built a program called Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles, because I think people don't know how to be inclusive. They have to learn this, and they can't be expected to have a diversity and inclusion training one-off class in an organization or in the work setting, and then voila, I know how to be inclusive. So my thing is, let me teach the individual how to meet the organization halfway by building up their muscles, so that when they come into the workplace, it's a dance together with the organization, what they're doing on their end. So it's been a bit of self-reflection and awareness on my part. And Keisha, you just opened a can of worms. I can talk a lot about organizations walking the talk, but let me stop there.
No, I appreciate the conversation, because I know that I've heard from some leaders, they're just not sure what direction to go in. It's a very, like you said, it's a very interesting dance. And I feel you on the, when you said you came out of it, the resurrection from it, it really was that heavy. And unfortunately, not everyone felt that same impact. But everyone is affected by racism. Everyone is affected by what happened to George Floyd. I go back to the quote, injustice for one means injustice for all. We can't segment and say, oh, that's someone else's problem. This is a world problem, a nation problem that needs to be solved. And in organizations where you have a diverse workforce, it's important to dig deep, and like you said, not just have a one-off class. So I applaud you for having these workshops and changing and shifting that way to help others who may not know how to deal with it. So I would just love to keep going on this diversity and inclusion question and ask you, what skills do you think leaders need to be transformative in this environment?
Well, I think there's a bit of emotional intelligence that's needed. The ability to be vulnerable.
Yes, it's a great word.
Because people are going to know if you're just showing up in body. If your heart is not there with what you are hearing, like I am disgusted by seeing people have a competition about the George Floyd challenge. I am disgusted by some of the things that I'm seeing socially. And if you do not cringe or even flinch when you hear about the video, or you see the video, or you see some of these despicable things that are going on,
Right.
then the Black and brown community is going to know that you are just checking the box with having a statement. So my mission is to teach organizations how to walk the talk when it comes to being inclusive. And so you need to be vulnerable in showing up. You need to allow opportunity to listen. And I think there needs to be some awareness that this is not a one and done thing where we heard about George Floyd and, oh my God, let's take care of this George Floyd situation. Every day I get up and I get some bit of news where it's another name that's added to the list. And so this community is emotionally raw. Understand that. So in terms of putting a poker face on, whether you're a line manager and you see your employee there trying to be brave, just, you know, trying to get their job done, trying to show up and participate. If they're quiet, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So as a manager, you have to be empathetic. I think that's another word, empathetic, that people are not bringing their full selves to work.
Right.
They can't. They understand that they need to work and make a dollar, but the weight of what is going on externally is seeping its way into organizations. So I am pleased that many organizations have paused to, number one, make a statement, but to go beyond the statement and put their money where their mouth is. So a leader needs to be philanthropic in their efforts and understand that for this cause, it's not only impacting your employee base, but also your customer base, but also the world, like you said, Keisha. So dollars matter. And so whether it's products where you're creating products for Pride Month, you know, I saw Listerine and their product packaging was about celebrating Pride Month. And I loved it and I posted about it. But I'm also pleased to hear that companies like the company that makes Aunt Jemima is pulling that product from the shelf. And so, you know, leaders need to be nimble, adaptable. They need to be vulnerable. They need to show up and hold space. And even if that means quiet, no matter what your level. And I also want you to walk your talk. So don't show up one way in a town hall or in a leadership employee-facing meeting or customer-facing meeting and be one way, and then head out into the street and be another way. So there is a lot of work to do.
Right, because there's always eyes on you as a leader. We're watching you and you have that position. And as a leader, that means you're carrying people with you. I remember, so I grew up in Jamaica. You guys, you know, I'm Jamaican. And I remember when I was in, so I finished high school here. I was in high school age when I came to this country. And, but when you were going out after school, it didn't matter if you left through those school gates and you had the uniform on, you were still representing that school. So you could not, it was understood in school that when you left school until you go home, you're in that uniform, you're representing that school. It's a very simple example, but when you're a leader no matter if you're at work or in your community, and you have to show up. And sometimes it means just challenging some of your ideas and ideals about people and constantly being open to listening to the people who you lead and people in the community. So I love that advice. That's really awesome.
And I think it needs to be stated that everyone is a leader. You don't have to have followers to be a leader. So you don't have to have direct reports, because you could be a leader in your family. You could be a leader in so many different ways. So we all have to check ourselves and how we show up to be inclusive.
Yes, I agree. So what leads your passion, Simone, for this work? Can you give us a history of what led you to diversity and inclusion and at this point in your career?
Well, what led me to it was what's called an employee resource group. When I worked in corporate America many years ago, I was tapped on the shoulders to lead a employee resource group for African and heritage employees. And I fell in love with the work. I fell in love with the fact that I got to go back to school and learn about the culture. Because believe it or not, there's not a lot taught in the schools, and we're hearing a lot of that about the curriculum right now. So I learned about Juneteenth while I was leading this resource group. And so one, it was like a cultural immersion for me. Two, it was using my voice or finding my voice to be influential in creating change in the organization. I now had access. I had a seat at the table. I remember wanting to pinch myself when I sat in a meeting with the CEO, the chief commercial officer, and having them say, Simone, what are we going to do about this? And I was like, pinch myself, because I was always behind the scene doing development work, application development work, or as a project manager. And so this opportunity gave my voice, allowed me to find my voice, and allowed me to speak my truth. And so I just kept doing that. And so much so that I ended up liking that more than my full-time job. And so that caused me to want to do my own thing. So I started my business about 5 years ago. And I think the thing that keeps me going is knowing that I can walk the talk when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So I remember people telling me to niche down my business, choose a lane, choose a lane. And I was saying, but I'm in diversity and inclusion. I've got to find a way to embrace my differences. And so what I get, the joy I get from my business is saying, Simone is not one-dimensional. She is multi-dimensional, and she has different interests and different things that she's really good at. So I'm really good at putting women in the driver's seat for their careers. So I love that. And I love when I talk to my clients, or I love when I get on the stage and women are like, yep, yes, and we're here, and that's my tribe. So that's one lane. But I also feel a passion for pushing organizations to not just check boxes when it comes to creating inclusive cultures, and not just about diversifying, bringing diverse talent into the workplace, but also worrying about the talent that exists in the workplace and how you make them feel that they belong there, while you bring others in to mix and mingle with them. So you can tell I'm getting all riled up, and that
I love it. Yes, and this is why I said drives your passion, because I absolutely know you've authored 2 books on the subject, and I know that you are absolutely passionate about this, especially helping women to succeed. So thank you for sharing that. And I mentioned you're an author. What was that process like? And talk about your books. You want to check it out, because she is an author, and I'm so excited that you took the time. One of your books is called The Power of Owning Your Career.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, just the title alone for me is amazing, because when I was coming up through, my journey after grad school, I think I was just on autopilot. I really wasn't owning my career and crafting and looking at what's best for me. I pretty much said, oh, it's a job, let's go, So I love that. So talk a little bit about the process of becoming an author, and just why you focused on those specific things, owning your own career. And your other book is called, hang on, Achievement Unlocked, which I love.
Yes. Well, let me start with Achievement Unlocked. Achievement Unlocked is a gift to my daughter and a gift to the next generation. I had been writing a book for many, many years, and I just did not reach the home plate. It was in progress, and I just could not complete it. So after I had my daughter, I felt like I had something I wanted to say. And I wanted her to grow up with some instructions on how to set goals and be intentional, and not just let life happen to her. So I was up in the wee hours of the night in the hallway, just praying she didn't wake up, and pushing through to finish that book. And I think I surprised myself when I finished that first book, like, wow, okay, I'm an author, I got it done. So I'm a project manager by training as well. So I know how to create a plan to get things done. So when I finished that book, I realized that I wasn't done. I still had more to say, and I had a passion for owning your career. So I started interviewing people. I penned my journey and talked about my time in corporate America and how it led me to getting in the driver's seat as opposed to being hands off and being a passenger in my career. So what I did was I married my interest for diversity and inclusion with career in that book. So I intentionally selected 14 diverse leaders to include in the book and share their stories. So whoever you are, you can pick up that book and read a chapter on somebody who you connect with from an identity perspective, and learn about their story, about how they handled risk and how they got into the driver's seat for their careers. So that was the second book. And I have a third book, and it's called 52 Tips for Owning Your Career.
Awesome.
And that book came about when I was speaking in Michigan in 2019. And oh my goodness, this was my tribe. They spoke to my heart and filled me up so much with their questions that I thought they need more than what's in The Power of Owning Your Career. So I sat on the plane and wrote this book. So my third book is 52 Tips for Owning Your Career. And as we speak, I'm thinking, you know what? I need to go back to that book and update it for a COVID.
Right.
To incorporate what to do during COVID. So do not be surprised if you see a COVID refresh of 52 Tips for Owning Your Career. And I'm also working on an inclusive leadership book to come out.
Oh my goodness, you guys. You see, she is an amazing, amazing woman. I love that. I think, yes, a COVID follow-up is needed. So we're winding down our conversation. I would love to know what future projects, you shared a little bit about them, so more books are in your future. Anything else that you wanted to share with the audience, and just how can they connect with you? I know you'll be speaking at Web Summit, so if you haven't registered, go and do that right now so you can hear Simone and the other panelists talk about leadership. But what else are you working on, and how can the community connect with you?
Absolutely. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel my my engine revving up to go do something great after this interview. So thank you for that. And I am a fellow Jamaican, so whenever I hear references, I got to say big up, big up.
That's
right. What am I working on next? I am super excited to be working on a career membership site to create an affordable way for people to continue to work on their careers. Why am I doing this? Because I'm having people tell me about being furloughed. I'm having people tell me about getting more work, or how do I be visible when I'm a remote worker during this time? How do I get promoted, etc. People are laid off. Unemployment is at an all-time high. What I want to do is to stay on the journey and not just have my one-off workshops where people have to wait to get the education. So I'm currently working on a career membership site, and so more to come on that. I'm so excited about that and what that's going to mean for people, and the amount of people that can engage and stay engaged, stay focused on their career, and not just be accepting of what is happening and feel that their hands are tied. So that's what I'm working on. That's exciting. I'm rolling out the second version of my Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles training program. It starts August 4th. And I'm super excited about having a new cohort of people to go through that program and help them to be transformational in their lives and in their careers. So that's coming next, and a lot more things are coming. But let me just say, you can say,
and you have a podcast.
I do, and I was thinking when you were talking, I said I have 2 podcasts. When you were talking, I said to myself, I need her on the podcast. I think I asked you before, so I'm expecting you after that.
Yes, I will be there.
Yes, yes, you'll be on the other side. I get to interview you. Yes, I have the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, and I also have a podcast it's called the Inclusion School podcast, and I co-host with Julie Kratz about how to teach children how to be inclusive. So it's for parents, educators, and caregivers. But back to how you can reach me. You can go to SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org and connect with me there. You can find me on social media under Simone Morris Enterprises, and it has been my absolute pleasure to do this live with you, Keisha.
Did you get the list? Mom, wife, 2 podcasts, books 3 done. Now she's working on 4 and 5, and then she has a membership link. She is truly Jamaican, you guys.
You know I am.
Multiple jobs. And she not even mentioned that she's a great cook who's been churning out some amazing recipe on social media. Simone, this has been great. I could really talk to you for a very long time. I appreciate the time you gave us today and sharing with the Web Summit community. You guys go to websummit.com, sign up for Web Summit. This has been amazing. Take care.
Thank you so much, Keisha.
My pleasure.